Tonight, we're welcoming Tom Hegna, and he will be sharing with us 3 reasons to put an annuity into a retirement portfolio, discussing the secret sauce of annuities, the mortality credits, and covering powerful questions and handling objections.
Well, I tell you what, Tommy, you can't get much quieter than that. I told Zach, give me a huge introduction, and he said, nope, Tom just wants to make it real easy. So we did a real easy one, but people know who you are, and they love you. I mean, you probably already know that when we went to Puerto Rico this last week, got to do a mastermind. Man, I couldn't believe it. It was awesome. We had so many people, Jeremiah, I can't say his last name. You'll have to say it for me. But Jeremiah Damascus or something, he was there with us, and we had McKnight and Harry Dent. What a great time we had, and we're going to be mentioning that a little bit later today too. About me and you're going to be doing some masterminds here in the future, and we're going to have people. Zach's going to put a thing on there. If you want to be a part of that, make sure that you hashtag us interested or whatever Zach's going to put on the ticker, and we'll make sure we let you know when that's going to happen. Couple house rules real quick. We're going to be doing the questions again today on the right side. If you want to ask us some questions, you can do that during the talk. We usually wait till afterwards, and Tom will address those. Also, we got next week. Tom, you might be interested in this. Next week, I'm going to be doing the show that everybody's been wanting me to do, and I haven't done one in a couple of weeks. I'm doing the IUL versus the participating whole life. So we're going to find out which one's better, or does it matter? So that's going to be next week's show. Got Rick Benight coming on from Broker's Choice of America. He'll be on with me. He's our top design team guy. So he'll be helping me with that, and we'll be doing some good things there. So, Tom, we're going to have you start. And, again, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed last week. If you want to touch on that for a second and then jump right into your show, you're welcome to do it. I'm turning it over to you, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Bill. And I'm going to be speaking for about 30 minutes, so everybody knows to just kind of hang on. I'd encourage you to stay to the end. So Bill and I were in Puerto Rico last week with Jeremiah Desmarais, and we had a room full of hungry advisors. And I mean, the way the mastermind basically works, we go one around the room. Everybody says what's working for them and how they're doing it, and everybody can ask them questions how they're having success, and then they bring a problem or a challenge, and then everybody can help them solve it. And it's amazing when you get 13, 14, 15 smart people in the room, the amazing ideas. And then we had Harry Dent, John Najarian, and David McKnight. I gave a little presentation. Jeremiah gave a little presentation. So it was a great couple days. But let's get into this.
A lot of those guys are going to come on the show too, Tommy. So thank you again for that.
Yeah. Now we're using a different system than I'm used to. So some of my slides aren't building, but Bill's going to be flipping my slides for me. And I think the first thing, I'm going to give you some tips. My first tip is to understand the current economy. Bill, if you'd flip it here, our country is now $34 trillion in debt. It's climbing at about $6 billion every single morning. We are now going into debt another $1 trillion every 100 days. I mean, it's totally unsustainable. Every one of you owes $264,000 to the federal government. So I hope you get those checks into them. They really need it. There's $1.7 trillion of student loans, $1.3 trillion of credit card debt. And then the scariest figures down there in the bottom right, $211 trillion of unfunded obligations for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, government pensions, military pensions. And if you flip the slide there, Bill, why is this a problem? Well, when interest rates were 1%, it was only $340 billion of interest. I mean, that's a lot of money, but we could afford it. But at 5% interest, that's $1.7 trillion. Understand that this will be the first year ever that we will spend more in interest on the debt than the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Space Force, more than our entire defense budget. We're going to spend over $1 trillion this year in interest alone. We know the deficit won't stay at 34 trillion. When it hits 50 trillion at 5% interest, it's going to be $2.5 trillion. Totally unsustainable. What does this mean to you? It means taxes are going to have to go up. All right, that's the bottom line. Taxes are going to have to go up. Next slide. And if you go back to look at Paul Volcker, he was the Federal Reserve Chairman back in the 70s and 80s. The last time that there was rampant inflation, And if you study, he raised rates like Powell's raising. Then he paused. I think he even cut because Argentina went bankrupt or something. And inflation came roaring back. He had to raise interest rates all the way to 20% to break inflation. And so, you know, when people were saying the market, you know, the market was expecting the Fed to cut interest rates 7 times this year, I said, that's crazy. They're not going to cut 7 times. They are going to wait until inflation comes way down or until something breaks before they lower interest rates, because they have to break the back of inflation, or our country's in huge trouble if interest rates stay high, you know, indefinitely. So he's got to keep them high now, break inflation, and then rates can come back down. Next slide. I think it's so important that you understand the secret sauce of annuities. Annuities do things that no other product can do, and it's all tied to the mortality credits. Next slide. So these are the highest payout rates I've seen in over a decade. Now, what you're looking at is a single premium median annuity, SPIA payout rates. That's the purest form of income annuity out there. And you can see that an 85-year-old can be guaranteed 16% a year for the rest of their life. They can even have life with cash refunded over 12%, almost 13% guaranteed for the rest of their life. Now, those are not interest rates. Those are payout rates. And a payout rate is composed of 3 parts. Next slide, Bill. So the first part, next slide, the first part is the orange box. That's principal. Well, anybody can give you principal. The next part of the check is interest or investment gain. That's the gray box. Anybody can give you principal. Anybody can give you interest or investment gain, but only an insurance company manufactures that third ingredient, the mortality credits. So what you're looking at on the screen is exactly how mortality credits work in a SPIA, a single premium immediate annuity, or a DIA, a deferred income annuity, or if you annuitize any contract. Next slide. But many of you use fixed indexed annuities or variable annuities. Now, unfortunately, due to this technology, this slide isn't building, so I'll explain it to you. Let's say a client puts in $100,000 and then they let it grow for a while. So it grows, maybe it grows 25,000. Then they turn on the income rider. Well, first the interest comes out. That's taxable. Then the principal comes out. Not taxable unless it's an IRA or 401k rollover. But even if it counts down to 0, do the checks stop? No, the checks keep getting paid for the rest of the person's life. What's paying the checks when there's no money in the account? The mortality credits. All income annuities pay mortality credits. The older you are, the longer you live, the fewer guarantees you put on the contract, the more those mortality credits you get paid. Next slide. So I get people who say, well, Tom, I still don't understand what these mortality credits are. Okay, let me tell you a little story. Next slide. There were 5 90-year-old ladies who went on vacation every year. And one year, one lady said, hey, let's each put $100 in this mason jar. We'll seal up the jar, and next year we can go on vacation. We'll bring the jar with us, and those of us who are still alive, we'll split the money. They said, Helen, that is a great idea. So you got 5 90-year-old ladies, they each put $100 in the jar. They sealed up the jar. What do you think happened the next year? They forgot where they put the jar. No, I did that one. No, unfortunately, one lady's died. So the next year, next slide, Bill, 4 ladies split the $500. They each get $125. That was a 25% rate of return in 12 months. I have 2 questions for you. How much of that money was invested in the stock market? 0. What interest rate did they earn in that jar? 0. How they get paid 25% with no money in the market, no interest rate, is because they got paid mortality credits. Well, ladies look at this. They look at their brokerage account. They said, this is a pretty good deal. I think we ought to put it back in the jar and do it again. So they decided to let it ride. Next slide, Bill. You got to watch my hand. So now 3 ladies split the $500. They each get $167. That was a 67% return in 2 years. No money in the market, no interest rate. Why? Because they got paid mortality credits. Now, you're going to come into people who say, I don't believe in annuities, or Ken Fisher says annuities are bad, or they hate annuities. Don't even talk to me about an annuity. When you get a person like that, you need to understand you can't change their mind. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Don't try to convince them, okay? What you need to do is think like an attorney, and you're going to build a case based on evidence that will convince him beyond any shadow of a doubt. So you're not going to try to convince him. You're going to put material in front of him that will convince him. So what I want you to do for these next set of slides, I want you to put on your anti-annuity hat. You hate annuities, and let me see if I can make a case that would help you change your mind. Next slide. So here are 2 of the top PhDs in the world, Dr. Michael Fink and Dr. Wade Pfau. They work for the American College. And here's what they say. If the reason you save, oh, by the way, the teaser to this was I was going to prove 3 things to you about annuity. So the 3 things are, number 1, when you add an annuity to a portfolio, it will improve portfolio performance. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. I'm going to prove that to you. Number 2, that annuity owners are happier than non-annuity owners. And number 3, annuity owners tend to live longer than non-annuity owners. Those are the 3 things I'm going to prove. So let me start right now. If the reason you save for retirement was to provide a secure lifestyle, there's no more efficient way to create lifetime income than through an annuity. Income annuities are less expensive and safer for risk-averse retirees whose primary goal is income security in retirement. Now, look, the biggest knock on annuities that people say is the fees are too high. Do you understand that most annuities are not even fee products? A single premium immediate annuity is not a fee product. A deferred income annuity is not a fee product. A fixed annuity is not a fee product. A base fixed indexed annuity is not a fee product. A RILA, a registered index linked annuity, most of them are not fee products. There are only 2 types of annuities that even have fees. Variable annuities have fees, and some optional riders have fees. That's it. Most annuities are spread products, and most advisors don't even know what spread products are. So let me try to explain it to you. When you go down to the bank and you buy a CD, a certificate of deposit, do they charge you a fee to buy a CD? No. Is the bank working for free? No. They're paying you 4%. They lend it out to your neighbor kid who just bought a new car and they're charging him 11%. They're paying you 4%. They keep the spread. It's the same with most annuities. If the insurance company does not earn more than what they're paying your client, they're going to lose money. Well, then people say, well, yeah, those greedy insurance companies, I could just do the investing. I could do it myself. No, you can't, because the insurance company has a 100-year time horizon. They can buy a property in Manhattan that won't even be profitable for 30 years. You can't do that, okay? And so you can only invest for 10 or 15 or 20 years. They can invest for 100, 150 years, so they can invest differently and better. So just understand, most annuities are not even fee products. Very few clients understand that. And unfortunately, very few advisors understand that. Next slide. Now, BlackRock sells no annuities. BlackRock has $9 trillion in the stock market. They have more money in the stock market than Vanguard. They have more money in the stock market than Fidelity. But look what they say. Adding guaranteed lifetime income combined with a more aggressive asset allocation generates 29% more annual spending ability from one's retirement savings and reduces downside risk by 33%. Next slide. On top of that, delaying retirement and claiming Social Security benefits from 65 to 67 boosts total annual spending another 16% and reduces downside risk by an additional 15%. Remember, they don't sell any annuities. These are facts. This is their research. You can Google BlackRock, get this whole white paper. See, what you want to do is you want to develop a playbook. You want to have the slides that I have. You want to have those in a playbook. And then when somebody says something, boom, you just flip those out and go boom, boom, boom. Next slide. Here's Dr. Roger Ibbotson. Dr. Roger Ibbotson wrote a white paper as well. I'm sure you've read it. I've read it multiple times, where he compared fixed indexed annuities to bonds. And you know what he found? Fixed indexed annuities outperform bonds for the last 40 years and are likely to do so for the next 40 years. So instead of trying to convince people to move their stock portfolio to annuities, get their bond portfolio. Next slide. The Wall Street Journal. The case for replacing some bonds with annuities. See, you need to use these disinterested third-party articles, because here's the problem. You have a conflict of interest with your client, because if they buy, you get paid. If they don't buy, you don't get paid. You want to use people who don't get paid whether they buy or not. Wall Street Journal doesn't get paid whether they buy or not. Dr. Michael Finke doesn't get paid whether they buy. I don't get paid whether they buy or not. You want to use disinterested third-party articles. Next slide. Here's BlackRock. Look at that. Another white paper, a case for fixed indexed annuities in accumulation. You could use that with younger people. Say, well, why should I use a fixed index annuity? Well, let me show you what BlackRock says about it. Next slide. Barclays sells no annuities, but they studied and they found that fixed indexed annuities outperform bonds. So those are the kinds of things that you need to show people. Next slide. Here's Ernst & Young. Now, Ernst & Young sells no annuities. They're an accounting firm. And what they did was they searched for the perfect retirement portfolio. And you know what? They wrote a whole white paper on it. You can read it. And you know what they found? The perfect retirement portfolio has 30% cash value life insurance, 30% income annuities, and 40% investments. That's about almost exactly what my portfolio looks like, but I'm glad that Ernst & Young, an accounting firm who sells no annuities, no life insurance, has found that you need to add these products. Next slide. Now, I did a seminar last night in Bellevue, Washington. The advisor put over 200 clients and prospects in the room. And so what I did was I asked them, I said, hey, when you retire, do you want to be happy or unhappy? They said, happy. I said, you don't sound like it. One lady said, happy. I said, she does, but you don't sound. Do you want to be happy or unhappy? They go, happy. I said, great. Because the Wall Street Journal discovered the secret to a happier retirement. Next slide. The secret to a happier retirement is friends, neighbors, and a fixed annuity. See, the Wall Street Journal studied who are the happiest people in retirement. You know what they found? People surrounded by their friends, surrounded by their families, who had guaranteed paychecks every single month. Think about your teachers, your nurses, your firefighters, your police officers. They all have pensions. And what is a pension? It's a lifetime income annuity. And so people who have lifetime income annuities are happier. Next slide. Time Magazine found the same thing in Great Britain. Lifetime income stream key to retirement happiness. A new study in the land of grumps reveals that retirees with a guaranteed lifetime income stream can find true happiness. Securing at least a base level of lifetime income should be every retiree's priority, at least if they want to live happily ever after. And I will tell you that lines up exactly with what the PhDs who study retirement say, that you should, as a minimum, cover your basic living expenses in retirement with guaranteed lifetime income. Next slide. The American College, how annuities can increase happiness in retirement. When clients know how much income they will receive every month for life, they know what kind of housing and activities they can afford, allowing them to choose the lifestyle that makes them the happiest. Now, out of all my slides, this one applies to me the most. I'm a golfer, okay? And for 30 years, I was on the road 200 days a year doing what I'm doing tonight, okay? And I could not justify joining a country club because there's a buy-in, there's, monthly dues, there's minimum food and beverage. I was gone, 2/3 of the year, and I had to spend time with my family. It made no sense. Well, guess what? Now I'm mostly retired. I'm 75% retired. I have 2 country club memberships. I'm down in the Phoenix area in the winter, and then in the summer when it gets hot in Phoenix, I go up to Flagstaff where it's 30 degrees cooler, and I'm having the time of my life. In 2020, I won the club championship up there. 2022, I won the senior club championship by 10 strokes. I just tied for first net in the senior club championship down here. I feel like I'm at summer camp. We were leaving on Saturday for a Caribbean cruise. We did a Mediterranean cruise in the fall. We did a Panama Canal cruise in the spring. We're having the time of our lives. We have created the lifestyle that makes us the happiest. Now, somebody might look at my lifestyle and say, well, that sucks. I'd rather have a cabin out in the woods and go hunting and fishing. Good. You can build your life. Somebody else might say, I want to live in New York City and go to Broadway plays and eat fancy dinners. Good. You can build a lifestyle that makes you the happiest. Next slide. Oh, back up one. So many of you, some of you at least, follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you don't, you probably should, because I post a lot of fun stuff. I recently posted a Freakonomics study. This was actually a University of Chicago study that studied people who had guaranteed lifetime income versus people who didn't. You know what they found? The people who own the guaranteed lifetime income lived longer than the people that didn't. Next slide. Here's what the research shows. Research shows that people who buy annuities tend to live longer, and not just because of the kind of people that have the money to buy annuities to start with. It's apparently that little extra incentive of the annuity payout that keeps people going. Well, I think I can hang on for another 30 days. I'm going to stick it to Bill one more time, and they just live longer. The best article I've ever read on this subject was published a couple of years ago in the Journal for Financial Service Professionals. It was written by attorney Patrick Tricker. Next slide. The title of the articles is Annuities and Moral Hazard. Can longevity insurance increase longevity? Here's what he found. In the United States, a 65-year-old male who purchases a life annuity can expect to live about 20% longer than a 65-year-old male who does not. And he explained all the reasons in this article why people of guaranteed income tend to live longer. They don't have as much stress. They don't worry. Market's down 40%. They go play another 18 holes of golf with their buddy. And because they're being paid to live, guess what? Many of them choose to live differently. They watch what they eat. They exercise. They call the doctor when not feeling well. And all these dumb little things cause people to tend to live longer. Now, I told you this was new research. There's nothing new about this. Annuities have been around for thousands of years. The Roman Empire issued annuities. Now, many of you had to read a book in high school or college. It was called Sense and Sensibility. It was written by Jane Austen back in 1811. Does anybody happen to remember what Jane Austen wrote about annuities back in 1811 in the book Sense and Sensibility? Well, let me refresh your memory from chapter 2. Next slide. If you observe, people always live forever when there's an annuity to be paid to them. The annuity is a very serious business. It comes over and over every year, and there is no getting rid of it. She wrote that in 1811. Next slide. All right. The key to being successful on any appointment is the questions you ask. All right. I see too many advisors, they go and they go, oh, this product does this, it slices, it dices. Shut up. Telling is not selling. Telling is not selling. Listening is selling. Asking is selling. You ask 3 times as many questions, you're going to make 3 times as much money. Next slide. So why are questions so important? Next slide. Well, asking questions helps avoid arguments. I don't know if you've ever gotten in an argument with a client, but it doesn't end well. Why did it happen? It happened because you expressed a strong opinion over here, and they have a strong opinion over here. My point is, your opinion doesn't matter. You want to know what their opinion is. Okay, your opinion will matter in the close, but when you're doing a fact finder, that is not the time for you to start spouting off your opinions. Ask them what they think. Asking questions helps you avoid talking too much. See, I was a manager too, and I'd take a new agent on appointment, and they'd just be talking and talking. I want to kick them under the table. Shut up. Stop talking. Telling is not selling. Listening is selling. Asking is selling. Asking questions helps a person recognize what they really want. It crystallizes their thinking. If you do it right, it actually becomes their idea. Asking questions helps you get to the key issues faster, and asking questions shows you respect their opinions. And when you respect their opinions, they will then respect yours when it matters, which is in the close. What happened to our slides?
I don't know. Where you at, Zach?
Zach, we got the slides back up there.
There we go.
All right, keep going. Flip, just keep flip. We got to get back to the questions.
We got to quit drinking. Hey, can you give Zach real quick how to follow you? He'll put it on the ticker. How do they follow you, Tom?
TomHegna.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Okay, so here's some annuity questions. Next slide. So instead of just going in there and telling them how great annuities are, why don't you ask a few questions like, hey, tell me what you know about annuities and how they work. And if they say, well, I hate annuities, Ken Fisher says they're bad, well, then you don't want to make your annuity presentation yet. You've got to do some other work to build up to that. What do you want your money to do for you while you're alive? What do you want your money to do when you die? Those are 2 of the most powerful questions. Look, I've given over 5,000 live seminars in all 50 states, okay? And it's not unusual that when I'm done, somebody walks up to me and they say, well, Tom, that was pretty good, but, what should I do with my money? I don't know this guy from a hole in the ground. How can I tell him what to do with his money? But I say, sir, if you can answer me a couple questions, I can probably guide you in the right way. What do you want your money to do for you while you're alive? What do you want it to do when you die? How much of your retirement do you want guaranteed? Do they want it guaranteed? How important is guaranteed lifetime income? If it's not important, you might be just wasting time with them, just focusing on that. Next slide. So some life insurance questions. When you're doing a life insurance, instead of telling them how great that IUL is or how great the whole life is, hey, tell me what you know about life insurance and how it works. What's your philosophy about life insurance? Well, we'll just need it when the kids are young and then we won't need it anymore. You want to know what they're thinking. Where did you learn about life insurance? My daddy. Where'd your daddy work? Mass Mutual. Where'd your daddy work? A.L. Williams. Those would be 2 totally different scenarios, okay? You just want to know what they're thinking. Where does life insurance fit in your overall plan? What are your thoughts around term life insurance? I love it. I hate it. Next slide. What are your thoughts around cash value life insurance? I love it. I hate it. You want to know that before you make your presentation. Hey, you called me up. You said you wanted a $250,000 policy. How do you come up with $250,000? Remember, you should be showing at least $1 million of life insurance for every $50,000 of income. And why is that? Because right now, 5% is about the most you're going to get in a safe money place. So $1 million at 5% is $50,000 a year. You got to think like a beneficiary. If somebody's making $50,000 a year, they need at least $1 million worth of life insurance. All right. If they're making $250,000 a year, they need at least $5 million worth of life insurance or they're underinsured. Next slide. Now, no matter how good you are, some people are going to have objections. Next slide. So why do people have objections? Well, it could be a lack of knowledge. I just don't need that stuff. It could be a specific concern. Oh, I've heard about you. Your fees are too high. Or it could be a false concern. They want something else, but they won't tell you. And by the way, you do this all the time. You walk into Men's Warehouse or you walk into Nordstrom's rack looking for a dress, and the salesperson comes up and says, "May I help you?" And what do you say? "No, I'm just looking." You're not just looking. You walked into Men's Warehouse or Nordstrom rack. You're there for a reason. But have you noticed that the best salespeople, they just keep going? Well, it's a great day for you to come in here. We got suits on sale over here. We got ties on. Oh, that suit with that tie and those shoes, you would look awesome. And they just keep going. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about. It could be a perception issue. I don't trust insurance companies. They're not safe. And they may not be clear about their interests. It's just not a priority at this time. Next slide. So what are some techniques? When you get an objection, first thank them. They're listening. Thank them. "Hey, I appreciate that. You know what? Before I got in this business, I used to say the same thing," or "I hear that almost every week." So you want to empathize with them, acknowledge the concern, but may I ask why? Because you want to dig deeper. And when you say, "May I ask why?" that will flush out a lot of the false objections. If they are objecting to you, they do not see the value. You might see the value. They don't see it. You got to go, "Let me show you why this is so important for your family. Let me show you what this does for you. Let me show you what this does for your family." You've got to show them the value and then use those disinterested third parties to reinforce that. Remember, here's what the experts are saying. This is what you need to do. This is how you retire the optimal way. Next slide. So some basic ways to handle objections. Number one, you need to know your stuff. You need to know what's guaranteed, what's not guaranteed. How does that index work? How does it reset? How does a cap work? What's guaranteed in that contract? What's not guaranteed? You need to know every single thing about that contract. And if you don't know everything about that contract, you should not be selling that contract. It doesn't take that long, but you know, I got hired by New York Life as an annuity wholesaler. And before I took the job, I said, I want every prospectus. I want every additional statement of information. I want every sales brochure. I want everything. They sent me, it was this big. It was that big stack of stuff. I went through every page with a yellow highlighter. If there was something in there I didn't understand, I highlighted it. They couldn't believe it. I took all that to New York and I sat down with their product people and I said, "What does this mean? What does that mean? How does this work? How does that work?" Because if I'm going to represent something, I have to know it as good as the person who built that product. You got to know your stuff. One of the best ways to handle objection is put it in your presentation. That's why I always put fees in my presentation. I put Ken Fisher in my presentation. I put Dave Ramsey in my presentation. I put them in there so that never comes up because I already handle it. I just put them in there, bam, knock them down. Put them in, bam, knock them down. Put them in, bam, knock them down. And that, so if you can put it in your presentation, you're not going to have the objections. You can be like the person at Men's Warehouse or Nordstrom's rack. They say, "Oh, I don't like annuities." You say, "That's okay, but here's what this will do for your family. I don't want any cash value life insurance." "That's okay. I understand. Let me show you what this does for you." Just say, "That's okay," or say, "I understand," and keep going. You can defer the objection. Say, "That's a good point. I'm coming to that in 2 pages or in 2 slides. Sometimes you just got to handle the objection. All right. If you focus on helping them rather than selling, stop trying to sell stuff. Okay. You want to focus on helping them. Always put their needs first. Don't worry about your commission. Don't worry about what product pays you the highest commission. If you do, you'll never make much money. If you focus on always doing what's best for that client, those are the advisors who make the most money. You know, when I was an advisor, I didn't even know what my compensation was on a lot of products, but I knew that product would be best for that person. That's what I did. There were other agents in our office who go, "Well, that's paying a 9% commission. I'm going to sell that one." What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Your job is to help the client solve their needs and focus on helping them. If you do that, you're going to build trust. You're going to get their mother, their brother, their sister, their neighbor. You're going to get referrals, and I always made more money than the guys who are chasing commissions. So stop chasing commissions. Focus on helping. And then show them the value. If they're objecting, they don't see the value, and use those disinterested third-party references. Next slide.
Tom, you're teaching people basically to learn how to say yes and instead of saying yes but.
Right. So let's go over some annuity objections. Flip next slide. You know, I've heard annuities are bad. Well, again, that's where you use those third-party articles. You're not hearing it from the people who really know about annuities. You might hear it from people who don't know about annuities, but the people who are in the know, I own 13 annuities. I don't sell any annuities. I own 13 of them. Dr. David Babel owned 14 annuities, okay? He didn't sell them. He bought them. Your fees are too high. I just went over that most annuities are spread products. They're not fee products. Annuities are not liquid. Look, if you're in a deferred annuity, most annuities have a 10%, some have a 20% window, some have a cumulative window, so you can get money out. But I will tell you this, liquidity is not a one-time event. Liquidity is a lifetime event. And anytime you're adding lifetime income, you are increasing lifetime liquidity. My stock portfolio is doing great. Good. Let's make sure we kind of lock in some of those gains. You don't want, do you remember when the market goes up and then it goes down and you go, oh, holy crap, I wish I would have sold? You don't have to sell. We can lock it in, or we can put a buffer in there. Whether you use a variable annuity with some type of guarantee, use an fixed index annuity, or use a RILA that you can put a 20% buffer. They still get unlimited upside, but they get a 20% buffer. There are ways that you can protect their stock portfolio. And besides, remember I said, don't focus as much on their stock portfolio. You want to get their bond portfolio. That's where the annuities shine. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Let's talk life insurance. So some people say, Tom, I went to Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and he says only buy term life insurance. Look, if you brought me an appointment like that, here are the exact words that would come out of my mouth. I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you've heard a lot about life insurance. Let me share with you the ultimate truth. Here is the ultimate truth about life insurance. The only policy that matters is the one that's in force on the day that you die. Let me say that again. The only policy that matters is the one that's in force on the day that you die. Would you agree with me? And they say yes. All right. And so less than 2% of term policies are ever in force on the day that you die. Less than 2%. It's closer to 1%. Now, that doesn't mean term is bad. What that means is term should never be your only policy. Term is there for supplemental coverage. When the kids are little, when the bills are high, when the paycheck is small, you use term life insurance to get adequate coverage. But if term is your only policy, you are going to die with zero life insurance in force over 98% of the time. Tom, I want a $100,000 term policy. No. Term is cheap for a reason. They're supposed to buy a bunch of it. You're supposed to sell a bunch of it. Never illustrate term under $1 million. You might sell it under $1 million, but never illustrate it. We sell term in units. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. How many units would you like? Maybe I can squeeze a half a unit on the underwriter. I don't like to do it. I want to buy term and invest the difference. No, they don't. They want to buy term and spend the difference, or buy term and lose the difference. If they really want to buy term and invest the difference, guess what that is? That's universal life. Okay, think about it. What is universal life? It's a term policy and an investment account. And whether it's a fixed interest account or a fixed indexed account or a variable universal life, it doesn't matter. It's a term policy with an investment. But here's the difference. If you buy term on your own and invest the difference, all your term premiums are gone. But if you do it under the universal life umbrella, all your term premiums count towards the cost base of that policy. So you are getting tax advantage term life insurance inside of universal life that you do not get if you do it on your own. I have life insurance at work. Good. Pull out the policy. You know what it says? It says group supplemental life. You know what supplemental means? In addition to your own personal policy. Besides, it's only a $200,000 policy. You need $5.3 million of life insurance. It's totally inadequate. I don't believe in life insurance. I think Tony Gordon of MDRT handles this best. He said, you don't have to believe in it. I mean, it's not like a religion or something. All life insurance is a risk transfer vehicle. You are transferring the risk of a breadwinner dying in a house that would wipe out that family over to an insurance company that handles that every day. Every day they got premiums coming in, they got claims going out. Premiums coming in, claims going out. You're just transferring the risk to an insurance company. That's all you're doing. You have to keep paying forever. That's why you want to show a 10-pay life. I got in this business at the time, this was before Tamara Teffer, it was a 5-pay whole life policy, 5-pay. I didn't believe in whole life at the time. I was a buy term and invest the difference guy. And this guy was selling term or whole life insurance to my soldiers. When I was in the Army, I said, bring him to me. Because when you're a commander, you can do that. And they said, well, sir, he wants your birth date. I said, give him my birth date. I want to see him in my office in the morning. He comes in the office and says, what are you doing ripping off my soldiers, selling this rip-off life insurance? He said, no, sir, I'm protecting their family. I'm helping them save for a down payment on a first house. I'm helping them pay for their kids' college education. I'm going to give them tax-free income in retirement. And he said, your soldiers were nice enough to give me your birth date, so I ran a printout for you. I said, let me see this piece of crap. And I'm looking, okay, I pay for 5 years. 6th year, I got my cash. It keeps growing. My death benefit keeps growing. I'm looking at this. No more premiums. I go, why would anybody buy term insurance and you buy this? He said, oh, I don't sell much term insurance. That's what I sell. I said, you get paid to sell that? He said, I get paid really well to sell it. I said, I could sell that. And that's how I got in the business. So if you got people who only want term insurance, you show them a 10-pay whole life. And I think they're going to think different. I don't need life insurance. Of course you don't. You can't buy any insurance when you need it. You know when you need car insurance? When you just cause a 5-car pileup on the freeway. You try calling State Farm. Oh, State Farm, I'm so glad you answered the phone. I just caused a 5-car pileup. They won't sell it to you. You know when you need homeowners insurance? When a hurricane's just coming out at you, you try calling Allstate. Hey, Allstate, I got some mayhem going on here. I need some homeowners insurance. They won't sell it to you. You can't buy any insurance when you need it. You're young, you're healthy, you can afford it. This is exactly when you're supposed to buy life insurance. I won't need it when I'm older. That's what Dave Ramsey says. He says, I'll be rich and I won't need it. I can prove that wrong just like that. Let me ask you a question. Who buys the biggest life insurance policies? Old rich people do. If that was true, old rich people wouldn't buy any life insurance. They buy the biggest policies. Next slide. I want you to become more effective with young people. Okay, my latest book. So I've written 5 books on retirement. My latest book is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And I even got a Fox Business show every Saturday afternoon, 4:30 to 5:30 on Fox Business on Saturday afternoons. You're going to be seeing my Who Wants to Be a Millionaire presentation. Go ahead, next slide. So I got asked to do a presentation on financial wellness. And in my research, I found that financial wellness was tied to physical wellness, it's tied to emotional wellness, mental wellness, spiritual wellness. It's amazing how they're all tied together. But financial wellness sounds boring. Next slide. So I changed the title to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? So this is how I did business 30 years ago. Okay, next slide. When I'd go to a party or my kid's ball game and somebody said, well, Tom, what do you do for a living? Some people say, I'm a financial advisor, I'm a financial planner, or I sell life insurance. No, I didn't say that. I said, I help people become millionaires. You tell me how many million you want, I'll show you exactly what you need to do to get there. Now, you got to remember, this was 30-something years ago. ETFs weren't even invented. I couldn't illustrate mutual funds at the time. I couldn't illustrate hardly anything. There's one product I could illustrate, and that was life insurance. So next slide. So what I would do is I would solve for that person's for $1 million at that person's age 65. Now, this is a 25-year-old female. You can't read the numbers. It doesn't matter. I'll tell you what they are. She has to put in $7,700 a year. If she does that when she's 65, she'll have $1 million. Now, I wasn't there to say, oh, you should put all your money into life insurance. But here's what I found. 90% of Americans believe they will never become wealthy. And you know what? They're right. 10% of Americans know they're going to become wealthy. And you know what? They're right. Because to achieve something, you have to believe you can do it. But what I found is to believe it, you got to see it. So if I can put her name on a piece of paper showing her that she can be a millionaire, even if it's a pretty big premium, at least she can see it's possible. Then I would take her over to a time value of money calculator, next slide, and I'd say, look, if you could get 6%, you'd only have to put away about $500 a month. If you could get 9%, you only have to put away $250 a month. If you could get 12%, you'll have to put away $100 a month and you'll be a millionaire. Now, all of a sudden she said, well, I can do that and I can do that. I might even be able to do that. Now she can see it. Once she can see it, then she can believe it. Once she can believe it, then she can achieve it. Next slide. So there's 3 phases of wealth. There's building wealth, who wants to be a millionaire. That's what I'm talking about here. There's protecting wealth, who wants to stay a millionaire. And then there's distributing wealth, who wants to live and give like a millionaire. I spent my entire career in number 2 and number 3. But I have 4 kids. I've watched my kids, I've watched their friends, and I know young people are not getting the right information on how to become wealthy. So that's why I wrote this book. Next slide. To build wealth, there's 3 keys. Number 1, you want to make more money. Number 2, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you need to spend less money or spend wiser. And number 3, you want to put the majority of your money into appreciating assets. Think about it. Most of your friends are not putting their money into appreciating assets. They're putting into depreciating assets, cars, boats, jet skis, RVs, computers, iPhones, tablets, shoes, handbags, clothes. Those are all depreciating assets. We all got to have some of that. But if the majority of your money is going into depreciating assets, you're never going to become wealthy. And if you're taking loans and paying interest on things that go down in value, that's the craziest thing ever. You will never get wealthy taking loans and buying depreciating assets. You got to put your money into appreciating assets. Next slide. The dirty little secret is every single one of you is going to earn millions of dollars. Every single one of your clients is going to earn millions. If you earn $50,000 a year, you're going to make somewhere between $3 and $6 million. But if I can get you to $100,000, you're going to earn somewhere between $7 and $11 million. And if I can get you to $250,000, you're going to earn somewhere between $18 and $28 million. It's a lot easier to save $1 million if you got $28 million coming in than if you got $3 million. The real question, every one of your clients is going to make millions. The question is, how much of their own money are they going to keep? And unfortunately, too many people aren't keeping enough. Next. So how can you make more money? You got to find your ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese concept. It's the intersection of 4 circles. So the first circle is the one on the left. What are you good at doing? You want to make a list, everything you're good at. Then the top one, what do you love to do? Because you might be good at something, but you hate doing it. That's not a good combination. The one on the right, what does the world need? And the bottom one, what can you get paid to do? I'll use me as an example. People say I'm good at doing this. I like doing this. The world certainly needs what I'm doing, and I get paid pretty well to do it. I found my ikigai. Help your clients find their ikigai. You want to find your ikigai. That's how you're going to make more money. Next slide. So I also shared this secret to success with all my kids. I said, when you get a job, I want you to go to work early, stay late, and always do more than you're paid to do. Now, people say, well, that's crazy. Why would I do that? Because soon you're going to be the most valuable worker in that company. You're going to be promoted faster and paid more than your peers who come to work late, try to leave early, and do as little as possible for a paycheck. I'm just telling you, this has worked for me. It's worked for every one of my kids. It would work for you as well. Next slide. Even Abraham Lincoln said, whatever you are, be a good one. If you're a plumber, be the best plumber in the county. If you're a UPS driver, have the best accident-free on-time delivery record. Next slide. There are riches in niches. Find your niche. It will make you rich. See, you don't have to be everything to everybody, but be the best at something. Work with lawyers or work with accountants or work with truck drivers or work, whatever you do, be the best in that niche. See, I talk about life insurance, I talk about long-term care, but what I'm known for is retirement income. That is my niche. I'm considered one of the top experts in the entire world on the subject of retirement income. That is my niche. There are riches in niches. Find your niche. It will make you rich. Next slide. And most people don't become millionaires because they don't make enough money. The reason most people don't become millionaires is they spend way too much of the money that they got. And I'm on the record, next slide, of saying this. Most Americans could be millionaires except for 2 simple things. Number 1, they spend way too much money on their cars. And number 2, they get divorced. So the moral of the story, drive a used car and stick with your first spouse. Now, I say that tongue in cheek, but let's look at them one at a time. We all know that divorce is like a financial nuclear bomb. It just wipes out everything for both people typically. Next slide. I'm going to show you about cars. This is me. A couple years ago, I had a chance to buy a brand new F-150 for $65,000, or they had a 2-year-old pickup with 13,000 miles for $30,000. Now, anybody who knows me knows I bought the 2-year-old pickup. It looked brand new. It looked awesome. It was a beautiful truck, but I saved $35,000. Now, if I put that $35,000 at 6%, you can see that I'm going to have somewhere between $200,000 and $700,000 over time. If I get 8%, it's going to be somewhere between $300,000 and $1.8 million. That's just one vehicle. I'm married with 4 kids. We've had, what, 16 to 20 vehicles? You start multiplying those numbers times 16 or 17 or 18 or 20. I believe most Americans are driving their $1 million retirement. Oh, I'm a baller. I got a brand new Tesla. I got a brand new Lexus. They have no business driving a brand new Lexus. Are you freaking kidding me? And then they took out a loan at 7% interest. That person will never become wealthy. They are focused on trying to look wealthy. My best advice is stop trying to look wealthy. Focus on becoming wealthy. I'm just glad I never had that gene. I didn't care what people thought of my car or whatever. I always drove nice cars, but they were always used. I never bought a new car. My first car I did. I was a stupid second lieutenant. Just like every stupid second lieutenant, I went down and I'm making money. I bought a stupid brand new car. I don't do that. I buy used cars. Okay, next slide. Gary Vaynerchuk says people lose because they want things fast when life is long. Next slide. Then I get some of the millennials say, Tom, you don't understand, man. It's YOLO. You only live once. And I say, next slide, no, it's yo-yo. You're on your own, baby. Next slide. And the only person that will take care of your older self is your younger self. Let me say that again. The only person that will take care of your older self is your younger self. And I'm just so proud of my younger self that chose to take such good care of little old me. Next slide. Now, I want you to become a master in this profession. Did you know that to master anything, it takes 10,000 hours? I have done this more than 10,000 hours. So it takes some time and it takes some money to become a master. It takes more time than money. It doesn't take a lot of money, but it does take time. But I can speed that up for you. Next slide. So here are some things. I have a coaching and training system. So does Bill. Mine's called Tom Hegna on Demand. It does 3 things: training, coaching, and client education. Next slide. So for training, There's hundreds of courses in there. I literally took my brain and put it online. Everything I know about annuities, life insurance, long-term care insurance, prospecting, marketing, business insurance, estate planning, it's there. Okay, next slide. But it also does coaching. So you come to the client coach section and a video of me pops up and says, tell me about this appointment. Is your client single or married? You click single. How old is this person? 72. Once you hit those two buttons, a video pops up. Okay, so you're going on an appointment with a 7-year-old widow. Here's going to be her key concerns. Here's the products you're going to use. Here's going to be her objections. Here's how I would handle those objections. And I coach you for 5 to 8 minutes before you go on the appointment. The next day, you're going on an appointment with a 35-year-old couple. You hit 35 married. A video of me pops up. I coach you totally different than I did for the 72-year-old widow. Next slide. The last thing it does is client education. Where are your clients getting their information from? Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, Ken Fisher? I think they'd be better off getting it from me. We have Retire Happy You in this system, which is just a series of courses that your clients can take. And you just send them the link, they watch it. And when they watch it, you get an email. Hey, the Johnsons just watched the clip on long-term care. Hey, the Andersons just watched the section on life insurance, so you can follow up. Next slide. I have free resources. I have an entire YouTube channel. You should subscribe to it. It's free. I would encourage you to write this website down, tomhegna.com/webinars, tomhegna.com/webinars. Next slide. These are all free webinars. Everything I know about life insurance, you can watch that for free. The webinar method, if you want me to do webinars for you 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, I can do that for you. Yeah, all you got to do is send people there. I'm going to tell them that they need to do this and they need to sit down with you. My one call to action is that they meet with you. Don't Worry, Retire Happy. You want the slides that I shared with you today? All those third-party slides, you watch that Don't Worry, Retire Happy seminar. It shows you how you can get my slides. You want to deliver powerful webinars and seminars? In fact, if you really want the slides, you should watch the one on webinars and seminars, because the offer there, you get 3 slide decks for the price of 1. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I do the whole presentation on this book if you like to work with younger people. Asking powerful questions, handling objections. I just gave you a flavor of it. There's an entire webinar on that, and how to thrive in a post-lockdown environment. You don't need a credit card for any of those. They're all completely free. I would strongly encourage you to watch them. Next slide. You can put your name and picture on the cover of my books. It'll still say Paychecks and Playchecks by Tom Hegna, but then it says with contributions from your name. You get your picture on the back of the book. You get one of the inside sleeves. I get one of the inside sleeves. You can tie in with my brand. And if you buy 100 of them, you get them for the same price as the retail price of the book. You can't do your own book for that. Next slide. You can also do it with my Don't Worry, Retire Happy book that played on PBS in 80 million homes in the US and Canada. So you can tie in with the millions of dollars I've spent in marketing and branding, and you just tie in with that. Next slide. The other thing is there are agents all over the country. In fact, Bill, you remember Joe Moffat is doing his whole thing is just on using the Baby Boomer Dilemma movie. Yep. Next slide. If you have not seen this movie, take a picture of this. Take a picture of this. Go to that website, where and enter the code Tom. You get $20 off. If you've never seen it, it's normally $29. You can watch it for $9. And then if you write down the other website, theboomermovie.com, theboomermovie.com, there are companies that will fill the movie theater. Joe Moffat said he's had to make it smaller because they were putting 200 people in the movie theater and he can't handle 200 people at a time. So he's doing it better with 40 or 50. I mean, this is incredible. This is not a sales presentation, all right? But you've got all these PhDs, to include 2 Nobel Prize recipients, who say you've really got to have guaranteed income in retirement or you're going to have a problem. And it's a powerful movie. Next slide. So that's what I wanted to share with you, Bill, and your team. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take any questions now.
Well, Tom, I really appreciate it. And I want you to kind of, we talked a little bit about this, and we got your tomhegna.com webinars on there and everything for people to follow. But the other thing, when we start doing our mastermind classes and we're getting people that are really interested when we do that, one of the things, my brand is the Babe Ruth Bucket and the exception to the rule. And then we're going to do a brand together on the shoulders of giants, right? And that's going to be awesome, and we're going to be disclosing that. But one thing I wanted to ask you, and those of you that have to go ahead and go. We're going to go a little extra. If you got a couple extra minutes, Tom, we're going to go just a little bit extra. But I wanted to ask you a question, and then I'm going to read through some of these that they have. But one of my questions would be that one of the things that we do, we have the free stuff that comes on every week. You were a guest, Phil Graham, a friend of yours, was on here. Mike Driggers, we've had some good people. Next week, we got me doing some stuff, and then we've got some other guys coming. And I think we're going to have you back in a couple of weeks if you want to come back. And so one of the things that I think that I want people to understand is that some of the things that you're going to be offering that they can pay for, we're going to put that on the paid site where they can go to the vendors page. And if they do that, and if they're a paid member, they're going to get an even bigger discount. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. And so tell people, because somebody asked me the other day, said, well, they're starting to understand, like we're growing and the group's getting a little bit bigger and we're getting ready to do a big launch. And I know some of your people are going to be coming on with us as well. But one of the things I tell people is for the $97 that we charge a month, they get a 15-minute coaching call with me. And I just did one today for a young lady, and she loves it. She said, these are great. I just do 15 minutes. And sometimes I go a little longer depending on my time, but I can't get to 7,500 people in a month, so we pass them out and stuff, and other coaches will jump on as well. But I the biggest thing that I tell people, and I don't know, I know you got some things that you do, but people don't understand that it doesn't take a whole lot of dollars, like you said in the presentation, to be successful. And $97 to get what we give. We got Reminder Media, we got your guys' stuff, we got Phil's stuff, we got FMOs, we got all of these things. And I told somebody the other day, I said, at some point we'll probably end up giving it away because we'll have so many vendors on there. But can you speak to the fact that some people that don't have the big dollars right off the bat, but they can scale as they grow? Yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done what I did without the Kinder brothers, without Joe Jordan, without Ted Kilkuski. These are guys that made a huge difference in my life. So you can try to do it on your own. Good luck. Or you can learn from people who've been around for 30 and 40 years and know where all the bodies are buried and how to do things the right way. I choose my words very carefully because they work. I choose my third-party references very carefully because they work. I put my slides together very carefully because they work. And so, you can go out and try to recreate the wheel. That's fine. But I can take many of those 10,000 hours away from you, and I can get you smart very fast. And Bill, you can do that as well. So let's take some questions, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, it looks like we got a whole bunch of people wanting to do looking at I'm looking at the chart here. Let me look at the other thing here on the other side.
Maybe even Zach could read some questions, or one of the people in the
back. I got them. They just a lot of them are just saying that a lot of them are just doing what we ask them to do, and that's say live or say that one person, this is really, really good. They got 7 or 8, 9 people that are wanting, doing. No one's asked a question yet. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
And a lot of times they won't necessarily, but and a lot of time it's good because we went a little bit longer than we normally do. But like I said, me and you could talk for 2 or 3 hours and people wouldn't leave. And there's other people that talk for 10 minutes and they can't keep an audience. So I think we do quite well there. But and as we get more of those in, we'll let you know. But I know that. We're out there on LinkedIn as well today. That's going, as Zach said, that's going pretty well. And we're also on YouTube. And of course, we'll give you a copy of this, and you'll put it out to wherever you want to put it out. I guess one of the things that I know that the people would that I thought was pretty intriguing was when you talked about how this is buy, term, and invest, arrest. And I don't think people explain it. I think everything that we do and everything that you do is powerful in the sense that. Like when I asked you earlier about, it's always saying, instead of saying but, saying and, because just those 2 words make a negative connotation or it makes a positive connotation, right? And so a lot of times people, they just need a little bit of help with learning how to communicate and to get that banner going back and forth. And then one of the things that I think that you do very well is that, it's like me, when people ask me, how do I explain the 10% penalty on an annuity? I say, well, I tell people they have 90% access to their money. I'm saying the same thing, but I'm saying it in a way that it's more palatable.
I explained that the penalty is actually a positive. If they didn't have a penalty, couldn't give all the features that they have. They need to know that your money is going to be there for 6 or 7 or 8 years in order to give you all these benefits. If you could just take your money out the next day, there's no way anybody could offer you these guarantees or the other thing. And so it's not a negative. This is for your retirement. You're going to have it for 25 years. Why are you worried about a 10-year thing? You've got this other money liquid. You always want to make sure sure they have some money liquid. You don't put all their money in any one place. So,
and one of the things too, because you talk about the tax freedom and stuff, one of the things one of my mentors was a good friend with Harry Dent, and that was Bill Nelson. And Bill since passed away, but Bill was a big mentor of mine. Bill said, "How do you explain commission?" I said, "Well, I mean, sometimes now they've changed the rules. You have to disclose it. They have to sign off." He said, "Well, no." He said, "What he told people was he would tell them that I get a penny for every dollar that I save you in taxes." And no one said anything after that. That's a pretty good deal, don't you think? And so,
I mean, look, I would work for a major AAA company, and we had very strict compliance. We couldn't say it that way, but the way I say it is, the commission is paid by the insurance company. The commission does not come out of the client's deposit. It comes from the insurance company. Whereas the person who's charging you fees, and I call them forever fees, the forever fees come out of your policy. The commission does not. Now, certainly the product was priced to pay a commission, all right, but you can compare it to any other company that's paying a commission, so they can't be a bad deal, or you wouldn't buy it from there. So I don't understand why there's such commotion between commission or fee. The fees, your client is going to pay a fee provider way more money than whatever a commission would have cost, and yet they make it sound like the commission is such a bad deal. I think commission's a great deal as compared to forever fees. But those are the way.
Everybody should get paid. Everybody gets paid for something that they do. We'll finish with this. One of the worst things I ever seen was in 2008. And again, I say some things now because I'm just a writer and author. I don't sell anymore, so I got a little bit of leeway where I can do a little bit different. But one of the things that I heard one time in 2008, a doctor client had come in, and he had a $5 million portfolio, pretty nice portfolio. And he said the problem was he had $5 million when he started 20 years ago, and he still had $5 million. And when I showed him, because his broker was charging him 3%, which is basically what, $150,000 a year, right, for 20 years. So his broker made $3 million. He was still at the $5 million. This guy was furious. But you probably know as well as I do, they don't bring it up when it's their side of the coin, right? They just want to talk about what we're doing, and they don't show people that kind of stuff. And that's pretty devastating that he lost $3 million to the broker and still ended up with the same amount he started with. So
yeah. So you remember John Durbano was at the mastermind. He was a guy from Canada. He wrote a book, Wealth Without Wall Street, and he asked me to write the foreword. So I was reading it, and one of the key parts is he said he was somewhere and he said, well, where are all the clients' yachts? Because there were all these yachts, and there was the bankers, the brokers, they all had yachts. Where are the clients' yachts? And they all laughed at him. The clients aren't going to get yachts. It's the brokers that get the yachts. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, Tom, I want to once again thank you for taking the extra time. I know you're a busy guy, and I know that you had to brag about your golf. I tell people that, when I got my hole in one, I got a 9 on the hole before and a 7 on the hole after. But I finished with a 92. But my friend said you still got the hole in one, so it doesn't matter the score as long as you grab the hole in one. And I found out, Tom, that you also get an eagle with that. So I didn't know that. But anyway, I've got my eagle and I've got that. But we're going to play a lot of golf, I'm sure, in the future. I know people are going to be excited. Hopefully, in the next 4 or 5 weeks, we can announce when we're going to do our mastermind together, and I think that's going to be powerful. The other thing, we've got your stuff all over the place, TomHegna.com. Hopefully that'll get moving for you. And I know that you do this again, not necessarily. You don't sell either. I mean, you're helping people, and you're kind of retired, and you'd rather be on the golf course too. And I think that just for you taking the time and showing people what it's kind of giving back, and I think people appreciate it. And I can't thank you enough. I'll let you say goodbye to everybody, and if you would, hopefully we can get you back on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about life insurance if they want me to talk about millionaire, whatever. Just let me know. All right. Hey, thanks everybody. Hope you found it valuable.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Zach.
Next week, IUL versus Whole Life with Liam. Joining us, head of the Design Team Life Division, Rick Benight of Broker's Choice of America.